Sport for me has never been somewhere that I've truly felt comfortable.
The football club felt like the one place that I would never be safe to be who I was.
I couldn't imagine walking into an environment where you couldn't be yourself day in, day out.
2016 was right on the cusp of a huge national campaign around marriage equality. When I was a kid growing up, one of the first things I realised when I found out that I was gay was that I wouldn't be able to get married. You know, I wouldn't have a honeymoon, I wouldn't have a fiance, I wouldn't have parents-in-law. You know, all of these really significant milestones that we expect in people's lives, all of a sudden, because of who I was, you know, that was something I felt like I'm never going to be able to participate in. And so I think it was amazing to see the AFL and AFL clubs, most of them, you know, come out in support of marriage equality during that time. I think it brought their supporters on the journey. You know, if their football club can get on board with it, then it's all right by me.
One of the things about establishing the Pride game was that it was coming out of research, and the research had shown that you know, that clearly the LGBTI community didn't feel comfortable, welcome, safe at the football. And if you think about a club like St Kilda, which has grown out of a place which celebrates, you know, sexual diversity with a march down its main street, it's a pretty sad situation where, you know, people would feel safer, you know, on the streets in their community than they would at the football game.
Sport for me has never been somewhere that I've truly felt comfortable. I left sport at a very early age because of the homophobia that was prevalent. I went to an all-boys school and homophobia was just part of sport. It was part of PE class. And it got so bad that I felt like I couldn't be involved in any type of sport anymore because I didn't want to be subjected to that.
Growing up as a kid, I loved playing footy more than anything else, but you know, the football club felt like the one place that I would never be safe to be who I was. And so having the St Kilda Football Club come and be part of our planning committee for the Pride Cup for a whole year before putting it on, it really showed that they were able to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. It wasn't tokenism to the Saints, you know, they were in this for the long haul, they were there to make a difference, and they knew that it was also going to make a difference in their own club, you know, for their own supporters, their own players, and the community around the club. You know, it means a lot to a lot of people, and I think the Saints should be very proud. 8 years ago, the Yarra Glen held the first Pride Cup all the way back in 2014, and that started with a simple idea to put a rainbow on the 50-metre line, and it has now grown into this nationwide movement of sporting clubs of all different codes, not just AFL, promoting that message of inclusion and diversity, which is just so needed in Australian sport.
It started as a celebration of LGBTI inclusion for one member of their team, for a member that they wanted to stand behind and say, do you know what, whoever you are, we love you being part of our team and we want you to stay connected to the club. And not just you, we want everybody around our area to also feel included and hopefully, one stage, join us on the field and be able to play with us.
You know, I think sometimes the best things start small and really grow from there. And if, you know, football could be the vehicle which could get people from a country town to come together and have a conversation which for way too long had been taboo, there's enormous power in that. And so for us it was all about how could we take this idea and give it a national platform.
A Rainbow Connection is coming to the AFL following today's announcement of the inaugural Pride game.
St Kilda and Sydney will play in the first ever Pride game this weekend, and it's certainly going to be an historic weekend for the AFL.
The Saints will wear rainbow numbers on their Guernseys in a bid to help eradicate homophobic behaviour from the sport.
I think back to that first Pride game, and it's amongst the moments that I'll most cherish. Just see the rainbow colours throughout, just those real symbols of welcome so readily adopted by the Saints faithful and the broader football public. It's a night that I won't forget too easily.
I remember that I never thought a internationally renowned stadium would be lit up in rainbows, it would have rainbow flags around it, would have LED celebrations of LGBTI inclusion. And I remember walking into that first ever game between Sydney and St Kilda and seeing that love and support that was obviously prevalent throughout the whole stadium. It was an amazing experience to see the field, but it was a more amazing experience to sit on the sidelines and to feel like this was somewhere that I could actually be and that I could feel myself and be included.
It was something that I was really proud of the club to be involved in. It was a good experience for me at the time and for many others to sort of get greater understanding and education on what it meant to people to have a Pride Games. It was kind of haunting that people didn't feel comfortable about just going and supporting the team or the sport that they loved.
I think the visual impact of seeing all the rainbows on the Guernseys, on the socks, on the arcs, all over the stadium, outside the stadium, people wearing it was amazing. It was so fun to see and to feel embraced, but to see some genuine diversity in the way people approach football. It felt very St Kilda, it felt very us.
I think it's really important that, people with a platform, use that and spread, positive messages. And I think, playing in the games and playing for a club that gets behind the cause and has done so for so many years in the men's and women's game, it's a huge honour and I'm really proud of the club for doing it.
What I was seeing on an elite level was the exact opposite that I was seeing in school. I was seeing that on an elite level, players were supporting LGBTI communities. It was so incredible to see those two different worlds and to know that those two different worlds exist and hope that what we're seeing on an elite level between St Kilda and Sydney happen every year will make ripple effects throughout those PE and sport classes that I was in when I was younger, and hopefully mean that no LGBTI person has to go what I went through again in sport.
I think when you start an idea, you get confidence from the people who will stand with you. And Vic Health saw the potential, the power of this, but they also knew that we would need support because we're not experts. And what also Vic Health were always keen to do was to try and measure the impact. Are we making a difference? And what's the evidence in terms of what works and what doesn't work? We've got to continue to evolve because we're learning. It's been so terrific that the whole community have embraced us and joined with us and supported us to try and have these conversations, but also continue to challenge us and continue to push us to keep reinventing how the Pride game can support different parts of the community.
Today in the club rooms behind me, we launched the first evaluation into the Pride Cup movement, which actually looked and had discussions with clubs who have held Pride Cups and also looked at clubs that hadn't held Pride Cups. And what it found was that the use of homophobic language had drastically reduced in those clubs that had held a Pride Cup. And there's kind of rigorous evidence to show the difference that Pride Cup is having in the community. Just further makes the case that we need to continue to grow this in the grassroots and in elite sport across Australia.
The future of the sport will rely on people feeling included at a very young age. We've seen talent leave so many sports at a young age purely because they've never felt welcome. I mean, I'd hate to see the next Nick Riewoldt leave the sport at a young age because he felt unwelcome because of his sexuality. And I think that's what we're facing. How do we ensure that we capture the best talent and the best people moving forward in an inclusive way?
It's learned behaviour. You need to educate your kids and educate your loved ones and the younger generation about these issues and make known that you've got to have an environment and create an environment where everyone feels like they can be themselves. And it's certainly important for me to have my kids grow up in an environment that says they can be themselves and also respect others as well.
I think that it's huge having those games and that representation, because not only do they see people that are like themselves or people that they aspire to be like, I think there's also a message of education so people can become more aware and learn. And I think for the younger generation that's really important because they get to educate themselves, but also you can't be what you can't see. So if young girls and young boys and even older people are seeing that and seeing that promoted as our platform grows, it's really important.
Football has a wonderful ability to unite. And that's why we have a responsibility you know, to use that platform, to use that power for good. And the work's not done. We've got a long way to go, but ultimately, you know, we haven't been successful until such time as we no longer need a Pride game.